Hello, and welcome back to another update as I cover the latest developments throughout the front line in the Russo-Ukrainian war. We start out here in the northeast of the Kupiansk direction, in the direction of Kotlyarivka, where there has been some fighting, which is showcased by this geolocated footage, which shows Ukrainian positions being shelled here to the southwest of Kotlyarivka. And with this, we see that there are some positional fighting and artillery duels between the Russian-Ukrainian forces here to the northwest of Stepove, southeast of Kupiansk. We then move down south to the Kreminna area, where here in the Serebrenki forest area there has been some fighting, where the Russian forces managed to advance a slight bit here to the northwest of their previous advancements. A lot of fighting has taken place by these roads here that go through the southwest of Kreminna and Serebrenki forest area. However, recently we've seen multiple Russian attacks and advancements here to the southeast of the recent ones, and with that we see that they are now expanding the zone of fighting further westwards. And from the footage we see that the forest is just completely destroyed. Most are burned down to a crisp, and there's just a skeleton of a forest left, especially here in the winter season, where there, even if some trees were able to hold leaves, there isn't any, and as such there is hardly any cover from the forest, which is why we're seeing significant advancements compared to the past months, or to over a year actually, where fighting has taken place here in the Serebrenki forest area. And with this we're seeing that the Russians have taken the initiative here and are pushing the Ukrainian forces back towards the Liman direction. We then move a bit south to the Avdiivka direction, where fighting has been continuing here for a long time, with multiple weeks and months of Russian slow advancements towards Vesele and towards Avdiivka, expanding the zone of control from Belorivka and northwards. And with these small assaults, we're seeing that the Russians are also shelling Ukrainian positions here in the direction of Avdiivka, with this geolocated footage here to the south of Avdiivka, showing Russian FPV drones hitting Ukrainian positions here to the southeast of Avdiivka. We then move on to the next hotspot, which is the Avdiivka direction, where here the Russians have actually launched a multiple prone attack here towards the east of Avdiivka, the northeastern direction. We have this video here which shows fighting taking place here to the northeast of Avdiivka, where Russian tanks and other armored vehicles launch an assault towards the Ukrainian positions. We don't see the full video from what was released by a Ukrainian UAV of the 110th Mechanized Brigade. So we're seeing that the Ukrainian forces are fighting off against these Russian armored assaults on Ukrainian positions. What we're seeing from this video is that there's a mine clearing vehicle that clears the mines in one straight line, and the Russian vehicles are driving through that cleared path, where there previously have been some armored vehicles being hit, whether by artillery or mines, but they are burning. But the Russian additional forces which are going in this offensive have cleared the path down to the south and are now fighting here in the southern parts, where the video cuts off. So we don't know if this assault was successful or not. We'll have to wait for further footage. But what we saw is that the Russian armored vehicles passed through this section right here. We've also seen previous advancements here to the west of that position, so this is likely a connection to this, where they launched multiple assaults trying to advance bit by bit. Why the advancements are this small when it's an armored assault and we only see a couple of tanks or other armored vehicles burning, this likely indicates that they withdraw after these small advancements. So they clear a few mines and then they withdraw back beyond that. But we've seen that there have been reported 3 separate armored assaults by the Russian forces, according to Ukrainian soldiers fighting in this section. And they were here in between the 2 advancements the Russians recently made, and then here to the east of Kamyanka and to the northwest of Kamyanka. So with this we see that there are these 3 prone attack of Russian armored vehicles launching attacks towards the Ukrainian positions here in the Kamyanka direction, where they're facing off against Ukrainian artillery and mines trying to drive through them as they get closer to the Ukrainian positions, likely strike some of their fortified areas and other positions here in the Dacha area, as well as here in the Dacha area here to the east of Avdiivka as well, and to the south of Kamyanka. So all of these positions are targets of the Russian forces, and this is likely why we're seeing these 3 attacks for each of the dacha areas. Something to note is that these armored vehicles that were burning were also shot at by one of the tanks of the Russian armed forces launching this attack. This could indicate that these were Ukrainian armored vehicles burning and not Russian ones. We also see that it was separate from the armored column attacking, so that could definitely be the case, as the Ukrainians are using some armored vehicles to do some positional fighting here to the northeast of Avdiivka. So if we take that into consideration, we also have a additional follow-up video by the 110th Mechanized Brigade of the Ukrainian Armed Forces, where they show Russian soldiers in some trenches here to the northeast being shelled by Ukrainian artillery and FPV drones. And from that, we see that this armored assault is likely just a cover operation for these infantry who are supposed to launch assaults as a follow-up to consolidate some gains. However, we do not see what actually happens other than what the Ukrainians have shown, and as such, it is difficult to see how this operation turned out. But considering that they aren't releasing everything in just one fell swoop, it means that there is probably mixed results in their eyes, and therefore we will likely see that there will be more advancements by the Russians here in the northeastern direction. But also the fact that we are again seeing armored operations here to the northeast of Avdiivka shows that the Russians want to speed up this process of capturing the Avdiivka city, and that we're seeing more and more assaults by the Russian forces, which shows that the Ukrainian artillery capabilities in this section. Based on the video we saw, the Ukrainians were aware of this armored column for a long time. The video itself is sped up, and at the same time we saw 2 minutes of footage. So the Ukrainian drone saw this armored convoy for more than 2 minutes, and yet not a single artillery shell actually hit their positions, or anti-tank shells, or any other form of disruption for this assault. So they were allowed to move all the way to the front line without any issues. This shows that the Ukrainians are either significantly lacking in ammunition, or simply the military material that is needed for such operations. So we're seeing that the Ukrainians are struggling to deal with the Russians in this section due to a lack of firepower. We then move further south in the direction of Nevelske, where the Russians have made a small advancement, capturing the rest of this forest line after some positional fighting between Russian soldiers and Ukrainian soldiers. And the Russian soldiers were supported by armored vehicles, allowing them to get the upper hand. So we're seeing that the Russians are making some small positional fighting here to the east of Nevelske, which is heavily fortified with trenches everywhere in this section. And as such, there has been a fair stalemate for a very long time, with a lot of positional fighting getting a bit back and forth, with no significant developments. But with recent developments in Pervomaiske, it is clear that the Russians are also intending to do some fighting here in the Nevelske direction, and as such we're seeing some progress there, although they be tiny. We then move further south in the direction of Novomikhailivka, where the Russians again managed to advance some more to the west after their recent advancements here, expanding their zone of control after the Ukrainian forces managed to push the Russian soldiers back here to the southeast of Novomikhailivka. They're now expanding their front line in a westward direction as they are moving further and further westwards, catching Ukrainian fortified positions and the forest lines here at this part of the front. So the Russians are pretty much expanding the front line as much as possible to dry out the Ukrainian capabilities as fast as possible. By the wider the front is, the smaller the assault groups are, the more the artillery the Ukrainians need to use, the more ammunition they need to use, and as such the Russians would quicker dry up the Ukrainian capabilities, while the Western powers continuously delay the military aid packages. On that note, the US and the EU have yet to adapt the new military aid packages. As such, they are continuously delayed. We are already halfway through January with no additional aid to Ukraine. And at the same time, there's no clear indication that the US will approve the aid package so far. They are still negotiating over some sort of compromise between the Republicans and the Democrats, while in the EU, Hungary has said that they would continue denying the aid package, after which the EU responded with a nuclear option, which is to remove the voting rights of Hungary in the European Union. However, Slovakia has said that they do not agree with that and they will veto that decision. As such, there is no clear indication that the EU aid package will come anytime soon either. As such, they are both stuck, and Ukrainians will have to do with what they have, and what they have is clearly not enough. And that's going to be all for this update. Thank you all for watching, and have a great day.